So welcome to Cash and Liability Mastery. In this next course, let's talk a little bit about your lifetime earnings. You know, your lifespan continues to increase. Some estimates say that every year you live, you get an extra 3 months added to your lifespan based on modern medical technologies and improvements in our healthcare and diet. So you may very well have a lifespan today, depending on your age, if you're a young college student, well over 100. But for those of us later in life, we still could easily live to 85, 95, or longer. So one of the things I want you to do is a quick exercise here. I want you to multiply your expected annual income. So if you're young and you're just starting out, take the income that you believe that you'll be making when you graduate from college or the income that you're making now, and just estimate, what do I think I'll average over my lifetime? Just a best guess. If you're 50, 55, 60, you're older in your career, reflect back on your career. You can actually go to the Social Security and log in and see your total income to date. But what we're looking for here is for you to multiply that times 45, roughly the number of years that you'll work. If you expect that you'll average $100,000, for example, over your lifetime, you and your spouse or partner, that's $4.5 million. I like to say that we're all millionaires. Everyone that works on this planet for 40 to 45 to 50 years is a millionaire in terms of earning potential and actual earnings. It's really a question of what do we do with that money over time? How much of that money are we able to keep and redirect so that it's earning money for us? And for that reason, I created a system called 3 Buckets. It's a very simple system, and it's based on how we live our lives. It was a system I developed for me to simplify my own cash flow. And in the 3 buckets, we have a 30-day bucket, a 90-day bucket, and a 90-plus day bucket. And we're going to talk about each of those. But this is one of the simplest money management systems, and it's critical in terms of understanding the psychology of investing. You see, people and the way they manage the first bucket, that 30-day bucket, has a huge impact on your ability to create wealth. We'll talk more about this, but let's just look at the buckets themselves and how they work. The first step is to understand that you have monthly expenses. It costs money to live indoors, to eat, to travel. So we're going to use an example of $4,000. If you have $4,000 in monthly expenses, the first thing that you need to know is that third bucket over there doesn't matter right now. That second bucket, the 90-day bucket, needs $12,000. The 90-day bucket is always going to be 3 times your current monthly expenses. There's a reason for that. You know that if you lose a job, on average, it takes about a little less than 2 months to find a new job, but most people can find a new job within 3 months. So for most of us that are living off of say, income that we make through labor, what we want to do is have that rainy day fund that's sitting there that we've accumulated that allows us to relax. We're really going to have 4 months of savings, but for right now, think about this and ask yourself, what are my monthly expenses today? And you're going to figure that out in detail in a future class. But now I want you to think about your current expenses times 3 and write that down. That's your 90-day bucket. Some of you can fill that right away. And if you can, that's what we're going to do. But we need $12,000 in this example. Now the 30-day bucket is your cash flow bucket. You see, most people live lives of cash flow. And what I mean by that is when you live a life of cash flow, we're more concerned with right now than we are a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So let's just say that your current income is $4,500 a month, and you receive that $2,250 twice a month. This is what you receive after taxes. That's $4,500, and we already know you have about $4,000 in expenses. So this 30-day bucket is usually your primary checking account. I actually would encourage you to set up and make sure you have 3 accounts: a checking account, a savings account, and an investing account. Now, we'll talk a lot more about this bucket over here, the investing bucket, but this is ideally at the same bank: a checking account and a savings account where you can move money easily back and forth. It could be a checking account at a bank and a savings account somewhere else, as long as you can easily move money in and out of those 2 accounts. If your direct deposit's coming in on the 15th and the 30th, and you have a typical month where you spend $4,000, there's going to be $500 left over. That extra money that's left over always goes to the second bucket if the second bucket isn't full. So this is, again, an incredibly simple system and process because it isolates where the problem is in wealth creation. You see, if the problem is you can't fill up the second bucket, then we know that there's a cash flow problem in the first bucket. There's either too much month and not enough money, or there's something happening here that we need to look at. You need to understand, am I actually spending $5,000 a month and I'm only making $4,500? Well, that's not sustainable. There's another bucket we'll look at later around credit. But you can't spend more than you make. If you do that, you can't even fill up your first bucket. But once you fill up the first bucket consistently each month with that cash and that income, so each month that bucket's going to come in and it's going to flow out, and it's going to start and fill up and it's going to flow out at the end of the month. It's always going to be 0 on the last day of the month. On the 30th of the month, if I am negative, I have to look at what happened this month. Why do I have less cash here than I made? If I have surplus, say $500, that money goes into my second bucket. I literally sweep it over on the 30th into that bucket, and you'll do that each month until you have your target, whatever that is. If your current monthly expenses are $6,000, then you want to have $18,000 in that second bucket. You see, the world of investing, that third bucket over there, is only open to people that can master the first bucket, the cash flow bucket. And secondarily, psychologically, they need to also master the second bucket, because it's hard to invest and put money away when you're afraid that you might need it at any particular moment. That second bucket gives you a level of comfort that if I'm working today, I have current cash flow to meet my needs, and I have 3 months set aside in cash or in some liquid fund that I can use if there's an emergency. And if I do draw from that second bucket, if there's an emergency, then I'll replenish it either with my green bucket by earning money slowly and putting it back in, or from the red bucket, that third bucket, I can pull money out and replenish it from my savings. So each month this money is flowing. And once that bucket is full, once that $12,000 bucket is full, any money that comes into my green bucket that I don't spend that month goes straight to the red bucket. It's really that simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You can back test it against anything. A car breaks down. I have to spend $1,000. Where does that $1,000 come from? It always comes from the green bucket, but if there's not enough there, I don't want to put that on a credit card and finance those repairs. I would pull that money from my yellow bucket, and I pay for the car repair, and then I can decide, do I want to refill that bucket from my green bucket monthly, each month as I save up, or do I want to go ahead and pull some money over from my red bucket? Ideally, if it's a small amount, leave the money in the red bucket, leave it in the investments, and refill that gold bucket first, that yellow bucket first. And once it's full again, all that money goes right back to your red bucket to the future. What if you got an inheritance? What if you had a bonus at work, a $4,000 bonus from work? Well, it goes in the green bucket, but at the end of the month, you would sweep it into the yellow bucket. And if the yellow bucket's full, you go straight over into your investment account, because that bucket is the money that you could invest in land and resources and capital and other things that begins making money for you and reducing your burden on the first bucket. Because at some point in time, you'll maybe not want to work as much as you do today, And when you do that, that red bucket is going to become the bucket that fills up the green bucket. And we'll look at more of that in a future course. This is really simple, but it's not easy. What I mean by that is, I know with this particular choice every time, I would prefer to go for the donut. But sometimes you just have to make the right choice for you at a particular moment. And that may mean spending less today or starting to learn and think differently about your cash flow. But we have to master cash flow. Our entire wealth lives are cash flow oriented. The money we save for the future is so at some point we can turn that money back into cash flow that we use today. So most of the things that we're going to discuss are really simple, but sometimes they're not easy because they maybe take a new behavior or a new way of thinking about your relationship with money. So over your lifetime, there's a chart. There's that chart of what you're making, that chart of what you're spending, and that chart of what you're saving that is starting to create money for you. And the beauty of this process, if you think about the buckets, is that green bucket is that money that I'm making. As I'm making more over time, what often happens is we spend more. And that creates a challenge. But if you can make more over time and keep your spending the same, or even have it decrease over time, what's really cool is that red bucket, as you start to develop that savings and it starts to earn interest for you, that becomes cash flow that over time will eventually cross that green line. And that's the point of financial independence. When this red line crosses this green line and your passive income exceeds your current monthly spending, that's what most people consider financially independent. So in our next class, we'll talk about money dynamics, important money dynamics that impact how that red bucket starts to create wealth for you and starts to create financial independence for you over time.